Alright, Breaker here once again, sitting on the kit deck in an F-18. Wanted to talk to you today about point control, and specifically about a new firmware for point control that is kind of it's an alpha version right now. It's put together by a guy named, or worked on by a guy named Fred, along with Miles, and it's I guess unsupported, or kind of try it out at your own risk, but I installed it and it's working pretty good. I'm going to show you how it works while sitting here doing a startup, and maybe I'll do a little bit of flying. So I'll just start to get things going here, and you'll see right away some of the differences. So you see we got the little laser guy coming out here, right, to the cursor. But it actually works really well, and I find that this new firmware is really accurate. All right, let me just get the battery on, and we'll get APU rolling, and let's get this cockpit closed. It's getting a little noisy in here.
354 left of the final bearing, 297.
All right, so there we are. Get the right engine cranking. So yeah, sitting here in the cockpit. So what this does is it kind of changes from using a mouse emulation to a virtual controller emulation. And it works really well. I actually really like it. I think I like this better than the mouse. I find it more responsive. Like when I'm moving around, it just seems so much more like spot on where I'm pointing. Whereas the mouse always got a little sluggish, particularly when you got out towards the sides. I found with the mouse it kind of got a little bit offset. So let's get some of these things turned on here, and you'll see it works just like the normal one. Just as the other one has worked. There's nothing different from the clicking on buttons and stuff. There's a little bit of oddity around rotating dials, and I'll show you that. Flap test. But otherwise, it's pretty much the same. So I'll show you here. I'm going to turn up the brightness of the AMPCD, and you'll see I have to kind of drag all the way up before it kicks in, right? You have a lot more motion you have to go through. This might get fixed eventually, I'm not sure. Hey, so Striker back once again. I just needed to, this is a few days after I shot most of this original footage, and working with Fred and some of the other guys on Discord, figured out how to fix that issue with the amount of room you need to move to rotate dials within the cockpit. There's a registry setting that you can change that fixes it for pretty much everything in the Hornet. I'll explain the pretty much part in a minute. But so if you have a look at this, is with the new settings. So if I click and drag here now, oops, these guys are going to do left right. But you see it takes hold right away, right? And then same thing with this guy. I can drag up. Whereas before I click here and it wouldn't start rotating until it was up about here. But now, click and hold, and it rotates right away. So the trick is just figuring out which ones are left, right, and which ones are up and down. Like this guy is left and right. I think the altimeter is left, right as well. There we go. Look at that. You gotta rotate. So I want to go 500 like I did in the video. There we go. So that's a left, right. Some of them are up and down, like I said. Now, there is one thing, and that is the left console in the Hornet, for whatever reason, isn't working with click and drag with this. So you will have to use the third button to interact with it. Like, look here, I'll drag left and right, nothing. Up, down, nothing. It's not. It just doesn't work. Fred thinks it's the way they coded the cockpit, and they did something different on the left. So for this one, if I want to increment, I'll press the button here, button 1, and then I'm going to use button 3, and I'll just place it there, click and hold, and look at that, it'll just start slow, and then it picks up speed. If I want to decrease it, I'll push button 2, and then I'll click and hold button 3 on this. There we go. And that works on everything, but I wanted to just let you know the important thing. That registry edit did work with this, so now I can adjust this nice and easily. And also the altimeter, radar altimeter setting works well with it as well, whereas in the other one it just wasn't working properly. So yeah, I'll leave you back into our originally scheduled program. You'll hear me harp on a bit about this, the travel that you need to do, and that they'll probably fix it at some point. Well, it's fixed now. So let's get back in the footage from a few days ago. So yeah, not too much else to mention about it. Then it really does work quite nicely. See, I can turn on all my stuff here. Still interact with the cockpit really nicely. All right, that's all good. Come in here and wait for that's good to go, and we'll get this guy. Look at that. There's the E2. All right, so like if I wanted to come in here and configure my countermeasures, I'll zoom in so we can get a better look. So I always, for program 1 in the Hornet, turn off chaff, and then I said repeat either 3 or 4. I've been doing 4 lately. And 0.5 interval, save. Step through to program 5, and I do this as my flares only. Same idea with repeating 4, but I do a 0.75. There we go. I can still do all the other good stuff. I'll get my HMD aligned. There we go. Enough. Let's see, forgot to use stored heading on the INS. Get that rolling. Think everything else is good. Put the flaps to half. Reset. Takeoff trim. Come back over here. Let's set takeoff trim. We're pretty light today, I think. So about 16 is good. Probably 15 would be good. I'll do 16. Now I should check the aircraft weight, but we're good to go. So once we're in alignment here, I'll go ahead and take off. I think 127.5. I think is frequency for the carrier. And like I said, it can be a little funky at times with this. So, otherwise, I really like the firmware. The firmware is really good. It wasn't too difficult to install. I'll do a video segment showing how to install it, how to roll back if you want. Otherwise, really good. One other thing you can do with the button clicking is you can set it into what he calls a modal setting. So what that does is that with a long, and it's in modal, and that's a separate setting you do in the configuration software. If you press and hold button 3, button 1 will become rotating up, button 2 will be rotating down. So you don't have to set it with those and then go to button 3. It's kind of a reverse of it, right? And then to go back to normal left-right clicking, you just quick press on button 3. So long press takes you in the modal one with scrolling up, scrolling down, and the quick press takes it out. But you have to set that before you get into the game. All right, INS is good. I'd say let's get rolling here. Remove wheel chocks.
Chief, remove the wheel chocks. Copy. Wheel chocks are now removed.
Zip on over to catapult 2, I think.
Roger, ball.
Get things centered up for the view.
Southwest personnel,
Alright, shooter's telling me to rev up. Get a salute.
clear downwind, 14 heading 120. 311 on course, 241 off, Roger, ball.
Start my climb. I didn't set my radar altimeter here. Oh. This is that funkiness I was talking about. So the radar altimeter, I typically just, I think I've been setting it with the holding button 3. I'm going to set it down to 500. So I'll be good to go with my landing. There we go. Alright, let's come back to the HSI, get TAC and ILS turned on. Make that. Enough. Land a little bit heavy today. .355 Hornet ball 5.8. Yeah, it's okay, I guess.
Give us a test of your light.
Alright, so there you have it. Like I said, point control with the new firmware works great in DCS. I'm able to get the Hornet started up, fly it around, configure stuff in flight. The only oddities that I've experienced really is around using the click and drag on some of these buttons. The radar altimeter here doesn't seem to really work with that at all, so I had to use the adjust, clicking left or button 1 or button 2, and then click and hold on the button 3 to cause it to turn that dial. But otherwise, everything works really well. The other odd thing was that because it stores the cursor somewhere, when you look far left, you're going to see it sticking out there. Might be something that they could fix Maybe stick it up into the back. That might be better. I'll mention that to Fred. But yeah, go grab the firmware. Works great in DCS. It also works great in another flight sim that might interest you. Let's go have a look at that.
Be easy with it.
Well, here I am back in the Hornet, but wait, this thing looks different. Yeah, I'm in Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020 or 2022, I guess they call it now. And I'm got my point control on. So one thing that this firmware does that may be of interest to a lot of people out there is that point control with this little experimental firmware works with Microsoft Flight Simulator. So you can now interact with the cockpit. Now, I'm just in the Hornet because I'm familiar with it. It has some odd issues with some of the knobs, but interacting with buttons works just fine. Like I'll show you here. Now you see we got this controller. It's right in my face. You can actually move that further away with a registry edit if you want. It's not too difficult to do. But let's come over here and let's maybe bring up the HSI. Look at that. I'm in Microsoft Flight Simulator and I'm clicking buttons in the cockpit. How cool is that? Right? Yeah, you can do all of these things, right? So it's pretty cool. I mean, obviously there's some of these buttons really don't do anything when you click on them, but you can change the scale if you want. Zoom on in down there. I don't know, some folks might recognize I'm at Batumi right now in the Caucasus. I'm going to attempt to take off. We'll get rid of these. Yep. There we go. Yeah, it's a little bit funky at times working with this, but again, this is just the initial stages of the firmware, right? But otherwise, I think we're good to go. I'm going to, I don't know. Set trim. It doesn't seem to be showing my trim for there, but yeah, this is what the Hornet is. Now you can fly all these other aircraft, right? So a Cessna or some big wide-body jet, and I think the interactions for those is pretty solid. Well, let's see if we can take off in the Hornet. Just give a quick demo of how it works on this. I don't have all of my stuff set quite right, so some things are a little bit off, but I got the main stuff done. Like my controls. Alright. Let's get airborne. Gotta keep. Look at that. So I'm airborne in the Hornet using point control. I didn't have to use a mouse or anything. You can still use a mouse, and I recommend having one handy. But yeah, it's pretty good. Okay, see if we can get this onto radar altimeter. I think we're good. Kind of a janky approach here, but below glide path there. We'll bring her down nice and easy. See that nose up? We gotta hit the brakes, bring the nose down. I don't have the key bound to get nose wheel steering turned back on, so I'm just going to leave it. Park it out here and abandon it in the runway. Still got rudder, but at 40 knots, and still get decent rudder control. Funny. Alright, let's break it here. Not going to make it to go rearm. Wait, it's Microsoft Flight Sim, no armaments. But yeah, this is pretty cool. Just to show you once again, I mean, so to turn knobs, you really, it's really slow. It does kind of work, but you should, it's slow here. Let me show you in this guy down here. So it's still click and hold. So let's decrease and click, but look at that. I think this works a bit better in some of the aircraft from what Fred had mentioned on his Discord. But yeah, you'll be here all day if you want to adjust this from full to minimum and back and forth. Click and drag for these doesn't work. So there's not much we can do about that. But again, all the clickable stuff that functions in the aircraft will work. You can even come up here, you know, select stuff on the display here. Pretty good. So yeah, if you're into Microsoft Flight Sim and DCS, you were wishing point control would work with both, now's the time. It works for both. So I'm going to hop in another aircraft just to kind of demonstrate that this does work and the other one's a little bit better. See you soon. Alright, look where we are. We're in a cockpit of a 747 sitting here at LAX. Go big or go home, right? That's funny, when I turn my, move my rudder pedals, I guess, I don't know if that's supposed to happen. I don't know if that's a manual rudder or whatever, but anyway. So yeah, I'll show you, just give a quick demo that this does click stuff here in other things. So let's, I don't know, press some of these buttons here. Right, that's good. Let's turn off the parking brake. Look at that. The knobs, if you have one that does work. I don't know what that does. Yeah, see, I'm clicking and holding the third, so that works definitely without issue here. This is, I guess, a rotatable. I think. Push the buttons on those. So if I want to decrease this range, I'll press the button 2, and then I'll click and hold the, or just click and tap the button 3. There we go. See, it's rotating. Increase it. It's increasing, so I'll decrease it. You can just click and hold it, or just click a bunch of times. So it works really well. I like it. Again, all the stuff that you want to do in your aircraft, maybe not so bold as the 747, but you know, Cessnas and all those other little Lear jets and things that people fly. I don't know if do these things do anything. I guess so. Again, just using the third button to rotate this, right? It's increasing. Click button 2, and then start clicking button 3, and it'll decrease. Works really well. So let's see if I can fly this thing. Took off the brakes, throttle at full. I don't know how to do anything else, so I can lift the gear because that's pretty obvious. But yeah, don't hold my piloting skills against me with this, because I have no idea. I saw at 160 is what you want for typical loaded 747 takeoff. So let's go ahead and start rotating up. Alright, looks like we're airborne. Okay, click over and raise the gear. There we go. Look at that. Flying a 747 out of LAX. What a world we live in, huh? Okay, is that a good rattle? I don't know what's going on. But it's okay. I just wanted to take off. I'm not going to do too much more on this. But there you have it, guys. Go play around with. Alright. Go play around with point control. Give it a shot. Grab the firmware from Fred. I'll link all this stuff below in the comments or the description area. And I'll put together a little video. I might tack it on the end of this of how to do the firmware update. Now that you see it and you want it, how do you do it? What do you do? So I might stick it on the end of this one and make a separate video just for it so people don't have to suffer through this video. Alright, well, I guess I'm retired out of the DCS Navy. And I'm following the career path of a civilian airliner pilot. Although I have no idea what I'm doing, so... But still pretty cool. Alright, so, Striker in his 747. See you guys later. Thanks for flying with me, ladies and gentlemen. This is the abbreviated or kind of more rapid fire approach to updating the firmware for your point control to use the kind of the alpha copy of the firmware put together with Fred and Miles. So first of all, go to GitHub. The link will be in the description. Download the HTCC software right here. Read through the getting started. So click on this guy. Read all this. Have a look at the point control link. Right here. And then follow through the steps that are listed here. So download the latest standard firmware and update tools, which I did. Unzip it. There we go. Go into it and make a backup copy of this firmware.hex. You can rename it or just delete it. Replace that with the copy from the GitHub. So what you want to do is go back to this first page and scroll all the way down. Under Assets, it may be collapsed like this. Grab the latest .hex file. You download that, and this is what you're going to have. So you want to copy this back into here, and then just rename this to firmware.hex. There you go. And then follow point control's instructions for updating the firmware. I recommend using the manual. So just double click on this. You need to figure out which of your COM ports is going to be used. So you need to bring up Device Manager. You can go to the Start menu and type in Device Manager, and you'll get it. Select View and then Show Hidden. View, Show Hidden Devices. Click on the ports, COM and LPT, and expand it. You're going to see some grayed out, probably one or two maybe that are darker. Pay attention to which ones are grayed out. And then you're going to double press the reset button on the HMS. That's the one closest to the USB cable that plugs into it. So if you press it once, you're going to hear one Windows chime, and then you press it the second time, it'll sound different. And you don't. It just like click, 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 click. There we go. COM9 is the one we want, and it'll go back. All right, now you know that COM9 is the one you want. enter the COM port name into the command prompt here. So just the COM, the part in the parentheses here. So if yours was COM7, if that one lit up, just write COM7. You don't have to write all this other stuff. Hit this, hit enter. All right. Now it gives you the instructions. Double click that reset button again after the Windows chime. You're going to press any key on the keyboard. Make sure this window is active. So I'll double press. Now, do you hear that? Press a key. And there you go. It's flashing. And you're done. Once you see this, you are all done. If you saw it, if the window disappears, and like you've done something wrong, either you didn't press the button fast enough, or you have the COM port incorrectly listed, kind of go through there and try it again. You're pressing a key, so the next thing you want to do is install HTC software. So come back into your downloaded software here, run HTCC, install it, and then run the HTC settings. There's two things you can do. You want to run HTCC settings. And there's the HTC settings. So you want to make sure it's enabled, and tracking devices point control. Leave all this stuff as is. Now with this, if you want to do the mouse emulation, you could use this, but I found it doesn't work very well. So I'd go back to just sticking with this one. This is the whole point of installing the software. Make these disabled. Button clicking, you can do either modal or classic. Classic is kind of the way that you're familiar with. In DCS world, use the right eye or left eye. Go into DCS and make sure that this matches what you have in DCS. Typically, I think we mirror the right eye, just because of that's where the head-mounted sighting symbology will show in the sim. Once you're done with this, you can close it. And then you want to edit a few files. So these files I will link for you. But basically what you're going to do is change these files and change a value to scale equals 0 instead of scale equals 1. What this will do is it'll get rid of the hand that appears in DCS when you're using this. It'll just be a line then that comes out as I demonstrated in my videos. So I'll leave these two files for you. You do need to refresh this every time you update. You can now put on a VR headset and run the HTCC point control calibration. It's very simple. You just run it. You're going to see crosshairs. You're going to point your hand to where you think it is, click the button, and then do that again. You're done with that. You can close it. Okay, in DCS, you need to edit some settings. You need to go into the VR tab and make sure you select Use Hand Controller. And you also need to deselect Use Cockpit Throttle, and hand controllers use Stick. Get rid of those two. Stick one you might not be able to deselect. That's not a problem. Then you're good. Next thing you want to do is go to Controls and find the point control that's listed there, and go in and clear out the axes. So you're going to see it'll have a whole bunch of have some inputs for the axes. You want to clear all that so that it's not going to impact things like moving your hand will move the stick, just moving in a cockpit, or messing with the throttle or your rudder pedals. So clear those out. And then lastly, within settings and controls, go and set the controls for your auxiliary buttons if you have it. You know, stuff like salute or whatever it is you want. You have those 3 buttons on either side of your headset if you bought the advanced kit from Point Control, which I strongly recommend. You'll need to set those again. And once that's done, you're good to go.
Now there's one other thing you can do, and there's a registry edit to go in and change the amount of motion that's needed to set the click and drag to turn rotary knobs in the cockpit. I found that the default was way too large. You had to move like a large distance. So you change this to 0.01 and it's much better. And then one last thing which you can do if you want is you can run something called, when you're outside of DCS, you can always run a thing called joy.cpl, and it'll bring up game controllers, or you can find this on your own. Select your point control, do properties, and if you've installed the new firmware, you're going to see this axes thing here. If you don't see this, that means you're on the old point control firmware and you're just going to see the buttons. That's kind of a double check. If you're having issues, this is one of the things you should probably check. And that's it. If you have any questions, certainly ask in the comments. Do advise that you hop onto Discord with Point Control, and also Fred, who did the who worked with Miles to put this custom firmware together, and lots of great help in both those Discords. See you in the sky.